So, guys, it's been a busy, really 2 hours odd at this stage, and I know you've taken a lot in and a lot to digest. But we felt it would be good to cover some aspect when it comes to fees and funding, and for you to start planning. I found myself, I'm a new member to RIAM. I'm with the organisation just 12 months, so I haven't got the cobwebs yet. But one thing I've seen myself the last year is, I'm working with students, is for you to really get a handle on planning for your funds and fees. And I think the advantage that you have as students, um, in many ways, is that if you make your application with us now, as I said to you at the start, and you then decide, for example, you are accepting your offer with us and that you are making us your number one choice, you really can, from February, March of next year, start planning for finance and start planning for fees and start looking at where you fit in. And each of you are different for various reasons. Really, your nationality will change how fees are looked at. But also perhaps you have a history where you may have studied previously before coming to RIAM, be it undergrad or postgrad. So there are different mechanisms, and I know for all of you it can be a bit complicated. And you could be coming from Northern Ireland, for example, which could change how do you get funding. The UK, change how you get funding, or you're coming from Europe. There's different processes, but our office supports you through all of that. But what we do like to do is to get you in the process quickly and early, so we can advise you and guide you through those steps. And as you've, I think, heard today, our job is to help and guide you through every aspect of this, because we're seen as a community and we work with our students quite closely. So one aspect I want to highlight today under fees and funding for Irish students and European students is, and for European, this may be a little strange, some of this terminology you're going to hear from me, but I want you to review it, but then come back to me if you've got any questions of how you access funding as a European student. Irish students, I feel you should be reasonably clear about the process, which is under SUSI. Again, if you're not, we will provide you steps, but SUSI is the Student Universal Support Ireland organisation or government agency that manages funding for students. And all of you as Irish European can go onto that website and check where you're eligible. And eligibility under that funding as an Irish or European student really goes under two aspects. One is called the fee portion, and the other is a student grant, which is a maintenance payment that's paid to you directly. The fee portion covers your registration fee with RIAM of €3,000. As we're an associate college, we work very closely with Trinity on this aspect. However, then for students, who are non-EU, we are conscious that there is a different fee structure for you, and we do offer options of scholarships and bursaries. For European students and Irish students, we don't actually offer bursaries because we can't. It actually connects to SUSI and government funding. It's very hard to find a way through that. But we do work with our students who red flag to us, I have concerns about funding. We work our way through with you then from March of next year to see, can we find you a solution to help you with funding or give you ideas what you can do or address issues you may have in SUSI. So this is just to give you an overview of fees. Don't react when you see this structure of a document. It's just fees. It's just to give you a breakdown of how fees are managed. Under the Access Programme, there is a fee for Irish and EU students, 6,200. That's not funded by the Exchequer or under SUSI or Higher Education Authority. You pay that yourself. The Diploma Music Teaching, again, that's not covered by the Exchequer in terms of funding. It is funded by you directly. If you're an Irish student or European student and you're applying for our BMUS programme, Irish European students, normally the only fee you'll have to pay is the 3,000 registration fee, but that then is connected to funding under SUSI where you're means tested, and some of you may not have to pay that fee. It may be paid for by SUSI. It just depends on family income and your circumstances. Other qualifications are listed there, which are we call them in-house qualifications, which are awarded by us, like the Recital Arts Diploma, professional membership. You've got an idea of fees there. What I'll say to you, non-EU students who may be with us today, our fees are very competitive compared to fees across the globe in US. In the US, you'll be looking at 25 to 30,000 euros per annum when it comes to fees for non-EU students. And we are conscious of that for our non-EU friends. And also, factoring that in, within that side, we then have bursaries that we can sometimes award to non-EU students to help bring down your fee, depending on which course you've applied for, depending on your background, depending on if you've been, for example, been a teacher. There's so many different mechanisms we have on fees. Now, again, once you get your offer from us, it kickstarts that application process. We issue the offer. You get a timeline of 4 weeks to secure that offer. All students are asked to pay a one-off fee of about €200 to commit to that offer. And then where you have questions at that stage in usually March on that offer, our office feeds back answers to those questions and how you plan for your fees. Okay. So this is just an example I said at Susie. We've talked about it. Sorry, I've just jumped ahead. So scholarships, something I do want to mention to all of you. For certain programs, it is available to European and Irish. So, for example, if you were applying for the Access or DIP-MUS programs for music, performance and teaching, there may be scholarships available to you as an Irish or European student under what we call 1848 bursaries. And I'll explain what these bursaries are about. For undergraduate, the bursaries available under non-EU. And under postgrad, we also offer the bursaries to both EU and non-EU. But there are different types of bursary scholarships that we award. We have a budget set every year that we allocate to our RIAM students. So you may be offered a bursary for 1 year, or you may be offered a bursary for the full cycle of your 4 years of study at RIAM. If that's an undergrad, or if you're postgrad, it could be 2 years. So the types of bursaries we do offer as scholarships under the 1848. And the 1848 that some of you might have guessed, apologies, let me just go back, my slides are jumping, connects to when RIAM was set up. That's where 1848 comes from as a name. If you see you've got an administration assistant scholarship, there's a bursary of 1,000 or 2,000. Well, that bursary basically means that it's discount on your fees, okay? Some students would rather become a teaching assistant, but regretfully, to be a teaching assistant, you have to have a specific qualification where you're usually a master's student or a doctoral student, and you have to have experience in teaching. What I would say to you about the administrative scholarship is we've done a huge review on this the last year in terms of how we can improve it for our students like yourselves. And really, it's a very good experience for you in terms of professional development. We've got students this year involved in competitions, involved in concert administration, working with one of our colleagues, Kira Higgins, on events. We get students involved in vigilating, which is exam supervision, and it all adds to your CV because some of you may not be certain where your career is going at the start, and you get exposure to different aspects of college life at an academic level, under academic administration, but also at a performance level. So it gives you a feel of what goes on at a professional level across our institution. The teaching assistant as a scholarship is available only to postgraduate students, and it's down to teaching. You teach a number of students a year under our junior school and work quite closely with the head of junior. And we award different bursaries depending on your flexibility, your availability, but also about your standard of performance in your audition. The audition will determine if you're awarded a bursary or not. I think it's important to acknowledge that. So we can instantly decide to, for let's say the diploma in performance and music teaching, if we really felt you're an exceptional student and we wanted you to come to us and try and persuade you, we would definitely be offering you a bursary. But it's always in our mind every time we interview and meet with a student, can we award a bursary to that student based on their performance in their audition. The only thing I want to say to some students that may be with us today is that when you look at the teaching bursary, it's a little bit different because we do look for you to show you've got experience. So when you make your application to us, you will be asked to fill in a supplemental application form where you're asked to outline, do you have teaching experience? If you said no, well, then we'll ask you, do you wish to be considered for the admin bursary as a master's or doctoral student? And then we ask you more questions about your experience. How many teaching years experience do you have? Were you taught? We ask you for a CV. And if you didn't have a lot of experience, we would ask you, would you consider some training? And then we ask you also to provide information on references, basically, from a, maybe a reference to the institution you worked in, but then maybe also a reference from a student or a parent about your experience and how they saw you as a teacher. So that's the 1848s. So that was just to give you an overview really on our fees, where we offer scholarships. We are looking down the road at the idea of a scholarship and accommodation as well. That's not going to happen for next year, but it is on the cards to look at options. What I have found myself this year with our new arrival of students coming in this September, one of the biggest challenges that always concerns students is accommodation and the cost of accommodation. And what do I do about accommodation and where will I find accommodation? What I personally find at the moment is the negativity in the press does not help. It creates a kind of a message that we're all in trouble with accommodation. And I don't think it's fair. I think there are solutions always out there. But what I would say to for those solutions, it is part of you planning. And I'm a big advocate of planning. And I said to you at the start, if you feel RIAM as your number one choice and you get your offer with us in March and you are committed to us, then you tell us that. And then we can help with you planning for your accommodation, put you in touch with our providers. We've brought a number of providers on board RIAM the last year in terms of accommodation. Halls of residence is slightly more expensive. I don't deny that. But what I would say to you is that it does give you greater security in your planning of your life. You'll heard Virginia talk about a balance and being able to find that balance. It is there when you look at halls of residence. There are different options of halls of residence. We're not just looking at the top end, we're looking at different levels of providers so that it's able to accommodate your budget, because each of you have different budgets. And when you look at halls of residence, you're talking between 160 and 240 per week, depending on the provider you want. All of these providers that we're working with have been reviewed by us ourselves. We've met with them, we've checked them out, we've talked to them. An example of one provider we work with, which is under UniEst, they actually have a purpose-built music room for students that's available for you to access to practice, because I know that's a concern for some students when you look to share a house or an apartment. Where can you practice? Yes, you can practice in RIAM, of course, and book your room there, but there are maybe weekends where you don't want to have to go to the RIAM. It's nice to have that room beside you. And that's one of our providers that has that room available to you. We are actually looking to work further with some of our other providers like Aparto. We want to actually look at the idea of developing the RIAM community where you as students might decide to start doing concerts at Aparto, maybe let's say before Christmas time, that you can work with Aparto as a group of students to do stuff. That's if 5 or 6 you are staying at the Aparto complex. And I said, these are the options. We do have other options available, i.e. Homestay. Some students like Homestay, but some just rather as a temporary measure. We use a booking system. It's on our website. We provide you to book. They're all vetted. So you may decide to stay for 4 weeks. And then once you get settled in RIAM, make some friends that maybe 3 or 4 of you will decide, let's see, can we get an apartment ourselves on Daft. But apartment renting is not cheap in Dublin. I can't deny that. There is probably better value in the long term while looking at halls of residence. But that's a decision you have to make with your family to work it out. I would say to any student starting study, halls of residence is a really good option for your first year. It gives you a base to work from, builds a community, builds friends, and then you can decide after your first year, actually, I'm okay to now look at the idea of getting an apartment with 2 or 3 friends. It's a good way to start. You don't want stress in the first year of your life in Dublin with RIAM. This is why we're saying to look at accommodation providers as we have. We work closely with all of these providers. One example is Aparto that I just want to mention with you briefly. Aparto really are about encouraging and supporting students. They've got such support in place. You heard Virginia talk about student support, options available to help you with your well-being. Aparto is very much about that as an organisation, and they work very closely with students to help you really get independent and become independent and experience life in a safe environment that feels like home. They have all of these options available, for example, right across the city. It's not just one. You're talking about, with this one organisation, 5 accommodation options. Many of our students at the moment stay in the Loom. It's a new complex that's in Dublin 8. It's about a 15-minute walk from the RIAM. This will be a little bit further out when you look at Montrose. The others are close to, like Dorset, but many of our students are looking at the Loom at the moment with Aparto. And this just gives you an overview of the Loom. There's different types of rooms, different types of lets. You can look at a 51-week rent or 41-week, and we can negotiate with Aparto if you're looking for something less. They have different availability of rooms, what's called bronze ensuite, silver ensuite. It's just the size and what's in your room. And the gold ensuite will be a much, much bigger room, where the bronze will be a slightly smaller room. But if I look at the Loom, it's about an 11-minute bus, bike journey, 20 minutes for some, others 15 to walk, but an average 20. It's a really nice campus to live on. In terms of it has that real campus feel, good student community experience. It's another example, the Binary Hub. And again, that's still in Dublin 8. These two are both in Dublin 8, which, as I said, is if you were to look at a map of Dublin and look at the location of RIAM, if you look at Patrick's Cathedral as a geographical position, basically they're both quite close to that cathedral. But you can do a journey by Google Binary Hub and the maps to RIAM. You'll see how easy it is to find and walk. These are the aspects that are really good, though, about the halls of residence. Some of you may be into the gym and wanted to have a gym every day. You don't have to pay for gym membership. Okay, you have access to Trinity as a student as well. That's an important point to be aware of. As RIAM students, you have access to all of Trinity's services and facilities. But you may decide, well, I want to go to the gym at 9 o'clock rather than to go back to Trinity. You have access to a gym. There are study rooms, good Wi-Fi, there's laundry rooms, and all bills are included in that figure I've just given to you. And they've really nice spaces in terms of different areas that students can hang out in, from roof terraces to courtyards to different spaces around the actual amenity of halls of residence. They do offer variation in terms of the sizes, and it depends. It's really seen as apartment living, where you share your kitchen with either 2 or 8 people. And it depends really then on what goes back to the point I said to you about, is it bronze, silver or gold? And that gives you different accesses to the size of your kitchen, how many students share that kitchen. But no more than 8 students will ever share a kitchen. So it is a small community. And I said to you that if you decide that this is for you and you make your commitment to us, we can work very quickly with this provider to look to secure your accommodation. We do work very closely with them, and they will work closely with you as a student to help you secure that accommodation you need. Really, that was what I wanted to give you an overview of today, was just to give you a quick talk about the fee structure, but also to give you a handle of what we're about in terms of what we provide. So I guess the thing I would say to you today, when it comes to the office I work in, the 3rd and 4th level office, we will be working quite closely with you right now. And you'll be dealing with heads of faculty a lot over the next couple of weeks too, where you may have different queries. You may have queries about a specific teacher, but getting your application into us, once it comes into my colleagues on the team, we then communicate with you about any issue you have at that start of the process. And once you go through the process of your application, getting ready for your audition, being called for interview, securing your offer, we then issue that offer to you, usually in mid-February, no later than March. And once it's out to you, we then ask you to let us know, do you wish to accept? If you're not sure about that maybe we're not your first choice, it's actually okay to tell us that too. It helps us to have a better handle how we can help you. But if RIAM is your first choice, well, then it kickstarts the points I've raised with you in this talk, which is about planning for your fees through Susie. We give you advice, we give you guidance. If you're non-EU, we give you advice on planning your visa, what you need to do for your visa, how to secure your visa, depending on the country you're from. We then give you advice on accommodation planning. Non-EU students, we look at airport pickup for you. Irish students, we reach out to you to see what your needs are in terms of what are your issues. And if we know of the problems or you've got concerns, we look to address them as quickly as possible. So as I said, that's just to give you an overview today in terms of fees and accommodation. I'll leave it at that. I hope that we see your application coming into us in the next few weeks. I would say to you, don't leave it last minute. In my experience over the last probably nearly 20 years, one of the worst things you can do is make your application last minute. It causes you absolute stress, and it's not the way to go. Even if you're not still 100% certain about coming to RIAM, €50 is a good way to invest to get your application in early, because then we have it, we can work with you, and you can decide down the road where you wish to go with that. Don't leave it to the 30th of December, because it will be too late for you to plan for. It'll be too late for us to get information out to you. But at the end of the day, I say to every student, I see you as an adult, independent. It is your call how you want to do it. I can only give you advice, and that's where I leave it for today. So I said, hopefully we'll see you all in the near future, and I'll hand you back to Mark.